All right. Thanks for hanging today, Jeff.
What's going on?
Oh, just living the dream all day, every day, because I have wonderful places like the market that gives us booze and comedy all in one. But before we get there, let's rewind it back. I got to take you up on your story of your first ever alcoholic beverage, which you did not volunteer to me, but I just volunteered you to do it.
My first alcoholic beverage.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is a loaded question. My first legal adult beverage, or my first adult beverage?
The first.
Okay, the first adult beverage was a bottle of peach schnapps that I stole from my dad's liquor cabinet when I was 14 years old.
I'm going to object because you just called that an adult beverage, and then what you said was peach schnapps, and I don't think that that's a fair description.
All right, that's fair. Then it's going to be the can of Old Style that I swiped when I was 8 years old.
You're right. That's not the first one I want to go for. Let's go back to 8 years old.
Yeah. Because I remember there was a drink off of the can of Old Style. And then, what happens after you drink your first Old Style is that you hate it until inevitably you get Stockholm Syndrome and fall in love with it.
Oh, it's 100% an abusive relationship. Old Style and Malort, you have to get abused as conditioning to drink those.
I just did I did my first shot of Malort in about 6 years. I was in the city. I was in the city a couple months ago, and it was as torturous as I remember it.
People voluntarily do that. They just do that to themselves. They order Malort shots and they don't immediately call up their therapist for some reason. And that is just mind boggling in and of itself. It's abnormal human behavior.
Masochism.
That's what I'm saying. All right. So take me through the Market Lounge and Comedy Club. How did you get started there? How did this all come to fruition? Take me through the story.
All right. So it was a cocktail lounge. When I first started, I got there in May of 2019, and I started there in May of 2019, and it was a cocktail lounge that was a gin bar, and it was for a very specific clientele, that being rich polo wearing golfers.
Boo, unless they want to give us money, in which case, yay. But for the most part, boo.
They rarely did, though. They rarely did. It wasn't great. So, I struggled, and we tried to get things going. I threw everything at the wall just to see what would stick. We did trivia, we did bar bingo, we did all these things. And I would run a show once a month out of there called the...
I lost your camera. God. There you go.
I know. Oh, there it is.
It's all good.
Ran a show out of there called Laughs at the Lounge. Oh my God, it keeps happening.
It's all good.
And we used to fit 120 to 140 people in there every single time.
Wow.
And that was the most popular thing that we did by far. So, we ended up getting shut down for COVID. And we ended up getting shut down for COVID. And that's going to keep happening, I guess. But we got shut down in March. And then in April, what ended up happening is my boss ended up texting me. It was like we hadn't worked for a month, close to a month and a half. And he was like, hey, let's turn the lounge into a comedy club. It was 2:00 in the morning in the middle of April that he texted me. I was like, okay, well, yeah, okay, let's do that. But if we're going to do that, we have to do everything my way, because I am selfish and a control freak. And I was like, if we're going to do it, I want us to do it right. And to his credit, his name's Jason Rudy. He's the owner. To his credit, we did everything. We ended up mounting lights up. We ended up putting the stages in there. Everything was a lot better than it should have been for something that was that new.
Sure.
And we slowly but surely built it up, and we stopped trying to hold on to some kind of belief that it should be something specific. And instead we just went for whatever was weird. And so it's weird. It's a weird place. You walk into the far stall in the women's bathroom, and there's a portrait of Danny DeVito as Ongo Goblogian from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Good.
We have a family portrait, hand charcoal drawing of the cast of Seinfeld above the fireplace in the comedy club.
Yes.
It's weird. Oh, also the best part is that there's actually an 8x10 picture of Michael Jackson and ET right where you check out.
Obviously. I mean,
That's what you should have in a comedy club.
I mean, it sends a message. It's an unclear message, but it sends a message.
God, you know what? Now that I think about it, it might not be the message that we want to send.
It's the message you're sending either way, buddy. Here we are now.
Yeah, it's happening. We're here now.
Here we are. It's up there and it's out there and people are still coming. So really, what does that say about your clientele? That we love them, obviously.
That they're great.
And we want them to keep coming. Do you have a customer story or patron story that sticks out to you? It can be heartwarming. It can be hilarious. It can be what the hell just happened.
Man. So yes, it was a little heartwarming and weird. I'll try as hard as I can to avoid saying names.
Oh, don't though. Just drop them. Drop the names.
Just drop them. Okay, I will.
Drop the names.
So it was early on. It was right before we actually opened as a club. It was like one of the biggest shows that we'd done. The headliner's name was Dwight Simmons. He's an Indianapolis comic. He writes for the Bob and Tom Show. Very funny guy. He's got 2 albums that have gone #1. You should definitely look him up. And he is a Black gentleman. And he had done several race jokes, but they weren't wasn't like a ton of race jokes. It was just a couple here and there, just making social commentary.
Yeah, he can say whatever he wants. He lives it. Totally.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's his experience. Right. And there was a mother in like one of those. She was best way I could refer to her. She was an Orange Theory mother. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's so specific. It's so like, yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
You see her in your mind. Like,
oh yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add something to that image. She's an Orange Theory mom with a neck to ankle leather suit on. She had finished her 2nd bottle of wine. She was up checking out, and she turned around to Dwight, who was on stage, and she raised her hand. She said, "Excuse me, I have a question," just in the middle of his set. And he's like, "Sure. What's going on?" And she's like, "I'm just curious. Can you do jokes other than jokes about your complexion?"
Oh my God.
And he said, my complexion? He said, "You can just say it. I'm Black. It's okay." And everyone in the club started raining. I'm talking like Showtime at the Apollo booze on this woman. Like in a town like Valparaiso that I don't give much credit to for being diverse and accepting of different people, everyone rained booze on this woman. The loudest of whom happened to be my mother, who was there that night.
Yes.
She was the first one that stood up and screamed, "Get the F out of here."
Miss Webb, you go.
Yeah, she's amazing. And you know, this guy ended up coming up to the bar, who was not her husband. Her husband was seated still. I think he just didn't want anything to do with it. And so this other guy that was at the table, he came up and he leaned over the bar because I happened to be standing behind the bar watching the set.
Sure.
And he's like, "What do you want me to do about this?" I was like, "Get her the hell out of here, man." And he's like, "Okay, how rough do you want me to be?" And I'm like, "Don't fucking hit her," but you know.
That's a weird question.
It was extremely weird.
Why is the person okay? You want me to get her out? How rough? What?
I would prefer not to have to call the police. That's the line. But he ended up getting her out, and the set ended up continuing. Dwight was hilarious. He's been back several times since. He ended up writing a fairly successful and widely read article. He wrote a series of articles basically explaining what it was like to be a stand-up comic and be Black.
Yeah. And
one of the articles was about that experience. And of course, the first time I read it, I'm like, "Oh man, here we go. This is going to be terrible. We're canceled now because of that one woman." And instead, the focus of the article was, yes, this awful, terrible, racist, shitty thing happened, but the entirety of that club that night blew off on this woman and exploded against her.
I was gonna
So
say like that there is like a very bright silver lining, I feel like, in that story, and that everyone was on the same page. Easy decision, no problems there. Like you didn't have like half of them being like, well, I don't know. She's got a point. I feel uncomfortable. What are we gonna do? It was like, no, we're all like, this is bullshit. We can see that this is bullshit. Get this chick out of here.
it was the coolest thing I've ever expected. I don't know if you know much about the region at all, like Northwest Indiana.
I
Um,
only as much as I've visited, which is not all that much because I live in Chicago.
you're not missing anything whatsoever. You're not missing anything. I
Beautiful
think the
out
most
there.
it's the most pious and stuck up town out here is Crown Point. And unfortunately, I feel as though Valpo is just creeping ever closer to take that spot, which is great for someone like me because I get to go on stage every week and I make fun of all of these people.
That's the thing about towns, like, because I'm like from one of those towns, but like in Maryland. That's the best
Nice.
part about it, is like everyone's kind of on the same page. Like we're all like, we love it here, we hate it here. We're gonna be open about how much we hate it, but like we love it because we hate it.
Yeah, exactly. Also, none of those people are leaving.
No, it's like the strongest sense of community ever, because it's like the sibling bond. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you're there, you see the same people all the time, you go to the same places, you're having the same conversations. But God, like if you're really faced with the choice, you'd be like, nah, I love it. Nah, I hate that I love it, but I do.
It's going back to the old style thing. It's Stockholm syndrome. That's just what it is.
We don't want to go too far into our brains and figure out like we don't need to attachment theory our hometowns right now. But I do.
Our hometowns are just generational trauma. That's all it is.
We're just all trauma bonded here. We're all
Yeah,
insecurely
absolutely.
attached to our hometowns. 100%.
Yeah.
So obviously, a very unique community there, just by that story alone. But how else do you feel that you guys connect with your community through the market?
Well, I feel like one of the best things that we do is, some comedy clubs they take weird stances on things, and they think that people outside of their tight-knit home club community are the only types of people that can be funny. They're the only types of people that are going to draw a crowd, things like that. I don't mean this to be like derogatory towards what we do, obviously, but there's a part of me that really views what we do as like a AAA comedy club, almost like.
Interesting.
I don't want to call it the minor leagues, but it's like, I know we're not in Chicago, right? Like we're not the Laugh Factory, we're not the Improv, we're not Second City, we're not anything like that. But we are a comedy club that's going to seat somewhere between, depending on the night, 50 to 80 people. And you're going to get a packed crowd in there that is going to appreciate a really good comedy show. And I think that we end up bringing in people less based off of the names and more based off of the fact that people know that our reputation is that we put on really good shows. We offer a great menu. We have the best bartenders in town. And we use that to be able to help some of the local comics. And that's something that I'm really proud of, is I can't count on two hands how many comics we've given first-time headlining spots to.
Yeah.
Like people that have come from the city, people that are local comics. I mean, I can name like 5 to 10 local comics that we've given first-time headlining spots to, and they've continued and progressed to do bigger and better things. And they're in the city doing sets every week. They're everywhere. Some of them going as far as New York, different parts of the country. So I think that that's something that I, and maybe if I speak for the rest of them, are most proud of, is that we get a lot of first chances.
I think that that's huge too. And I think that that's almost, it is undervalued, and a greater conversation on art in general, because comedy is an art form. And I think especially sometimes comedy almost gets left out of that artistic conversation, but there is one to be had about like art being just as valuable, if not more valuable, outside of those larger venues like Second City, like the Laugh Factory. Like just because you're not that I guess like almost archetype of comedy club, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to be that it is just as valuable to be in a community of people that are there for the right reasons. Because that's the other thing too, is when you have those big names, you're having people that are also going there just to say that they went there, that aren't
Absolutely.
that invested in what the comic or anyone is doing on stage. They're not really there to actually analyze or even consume art. They're there so they can be like, yes. And then we toured this place in Chicago and it was a lovely time. The comedian
Right.
was, I don't know, but whatever. But people are going to the market because they see this, first of all, amazing place. They know it has a good reputation. They're like, okay, whoever's playing at this place, they're going to be good. I'm going to go and laugh my ass off, or I'm going to see something special, or I'm going to
Right.
have like this connection. And I think that that's almost more valuable than those larger places that are really cool and they're like culturally awesome and like cultural landmarks, but it's not the same product because it doesn't have the same end goal. That's my rant.
I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because you're right. Places like the Laugh Factory and Second City and the Improv and Zanies, they're all cultural. They're culturally significant and iconic places that are not just significant to Chicago, but to other places throughout the country. And yet I feel as though Chicago as a whole is culturally significant for comedy. Like people, I know it's a guy named Ken Hamlet I talked to just yesterday. He's headlined a couple times at the club. He moved here from Seattle. I know people that have moved from, I mean, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Texas, all these different places to come to Chicago because that's Mecca, right? Like that's where you come to start doing stand-up in Chicago. And I think that we benefit greatly from that, because a lot of people that are being looked over, but still doing amazing sets at places like Zanies and the Laugh Factory. And so it's like, I saw I saw this guy named Kenyan Adamczyk at Zanies one day, and he was doing, it was a Wednesday night showcase at Zanies, not in Old Town, but it was Zanies in Rosemont. And I was like, holy shit, like this guy's fantastic. He just made me die laughing for the last 15 minutes. And let's see if we can do a full half hour. So let's put someone like that probably is going to be skipped over for the next year and a half. Right. Come down and do a headlining set, and maybe it'll boost your clout a little bit. But worst case scenario, you get some amazing experience.
Also, I was going to say, it also hones your craft. I mean, that's invaluable, because that's the other thing too, that audiences don't always see, is that like you're begging for work. Like you have to be able to do the work to have the practice. And like the more you're able to do it. So like, I think that you guys are providing so much more than just a service to customers. You're obviously providing a service to comedians. You're providing a home for everyone. I would even say that you're providing a lounge and club. Can you
That's a fair point.
I would argue that. So we got to the comedy part. Can you take me to sort of like your the bar part? Like what's happening drinks wise? What's happening food wise? What's our atmosphere? What's our ambiance?
So the ambiance is, generally speaking, I want it to feel like a tavern with a facelift.
Okay.
I want it to be just a basement that is just dark. Like I have a high percentage of boomers that come into that club that need to turn on the flashlight on their cell phone to read the menu. And that's exactly how I want it to be. Like, for a couple of reasons. One, I like it to be that dark because for some reason, darkness in establishments equals class.
Obviously.
And secondarily, if I see you using your cell phone to read the menu, I'm going to mess with you when I'm on stage. It's just something I'm going to do. But it's a warm, God, I mean, like, it was originally a place inside of a banquet center, right? And the banquet center, it's rustic chic.
Okay.
Which is my least favorite thing in the world. Like there's mason jar chandeliers, and
I always love that. I'm like, what do you think rustic is? Like, has anyone been on a farm? Like, they're like, yes, mason jars, what the farmers use. Like,
yes,
dude.
Exactly.
No,
mason jars and reclaimed wood. Like that's rustic chic. That's what it is. It's what we're gonna do. And that's kind of how it looks. Drink wise, we have a couple special drinks on the menu, but not our cocktail menu is not extensive. It's pretty much just like, hey man, we're good bartenders. You know what cocktail you want. You tell me what cocktail you want. We're probably going to make it better than wherever you've had else in town. Beer wise, we always have an extensive tap list, and I don't tell many people this, so exclusive.
Okay.
The cheat code on the tap line is Old Style. Like that's just what it is.
Okay, so all right, we gotta go back here because this is so you have Stockholm syndrome. Like, let's just be open and honest about this. So, like, you can okay, cool, got it. Because this whole conversation has just been Old Style following you your whole life until right now, we're through this odyssey. You have clearly embraced and accepted your fate as drinking Old Style forever.
Look, man, when I was growing up, it was the only beer that was in my dad's fridge. Also, there was never anything less than a full 30 rack of Old Styles in that fridge. And that is a tradition that I have kept to this day. When we opened the lounge up as a club, we were like, look, man, I don't really care what you want to do with the tap line. All I know is we're going to be a little bit more lager focused, and Old Style is going to be on the tap line. Like, that's it.
So you're like, no muss, no fuss. You're like, listen, we have drinks, we have booze. Here's your seating. We're here to laugh and have a good time. Let's not think about it too much, basically.
Kind of, but now, so like the drink wise, yes. So like I said, Old Style's the cheat code. I mean, Miller Lite's going to be $5 and Coors Light's going to be $5 on draft.
Reasonable.
Old Style's going to be $3. It's going to be $3.
Ooh, okay.
Exactly.
So would you say that that's an insult to Old Style or a compliment because you want to keep it cheap? Okay.
It's neither. It is neither a compliment nor an insult. It is a service that we provide our customers.
Okay. Yeah, it's like prescription Old Style.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's subsidized Old Style.
Subsidized Old Style. Subsistyled. Yeah. Yes.
As for food, so the owner, he was an executive chef at a really popular local restaurant. Market was a restaurant. He does a whole bunch of banquet things in there for weddings, parties, blah, blah, blah. And, he focuses a lot of his attention and energy on those banquets. So he likes to make sure the food for the banquets and weddings is replicable, right? Like everything has to be replicable in a situation like that. And whereas the lounge can be a little bit more freeform, and I always say that the banquet side is copy paste, whereas the lounge is more his test kitchen, his experimental test kitchen. And so he'll make dishes, and we always have a steak dish, we always have a pork dish, we always have a chicken dish. But like in terms of comedy clubs, it's the first club that I've ever performed at, period, that will offer like a decent meal during the show.
Yeah. So you're going to be fed spiritually, you're going to be fed literally, you're going to be fed comedically, and also you're going to drink Old Style. And I can't like say that that's being like fed or given water to. They're quenched. It ain't right. It ain't right, but we accept it.
I'm going to take quenched, and I'm sure that that's just the Maryland in you. Just that.
Probably. There's a lot of psychological issues.
It's just, if you grew up in this area, it's some of the Old Styles literally in your DNA. It's just a thing you can't. It's like microplastics. Like you're not getting it out of your body.
If you've ever bathed in Chicago, there are just traces of Old Style all over your body. It's in the water system.
Your skin is literally croissant. Yes, 100%. That's what it is.
Is there anything else you want to get out into the ether about the market?
Man, so when will this go up?
This will go up on Thursday.
This will go up on Thursday. Well, then I will say that we've also had some pretty big shows at the market. We had Steve Ranazizi of The League in there. We had Jeff Richards. He was on SNL, Mad TV. And actually this Saturday, we're going to have Mary Lynn Riceborough, she was Chloe O'Brien on 24.
Nice.
She's Gail the Snail on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yes. Wait.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So we're having Gail the Snail at the market this Saturday. And tickets are on sale now. You can go to themarketvalpo.com and you'll see the button right there on the main screen. So get some tickets to that show and come out and see some cool stuff.
Hell yeah. And drink some old style and feel conflicted about it.
It's gonna the only way you feel conflicted is enjoying it after you think that you're not going to. I think that's the issue there.
Boom.